tour groups over here to the US now. US is kind of a hot destination because it's the most recent one to sign the approved destination status agreement. So it's basically destinations that lots of Chinese wanted to travel to for a long time and they couldn't. Now for the last couple of years they had an option, they had a chance to go. But what I think a lot of operators are not realizing is that the demographics of Chinese travel has changed tremendously in the last 5 years. And a lot of people are just assuming that everybody in China is traveling the same way. Everybody wants to go on these organized tour groups of 40 people to jump and see kind of the main, sites, and basically click as many pictures as they can in as short a time as possible, and spend all the time on the bus. And that's like where tourism really started in Europe, which obviously happened several years before the US. But that is actually phasing out because most of the people that travel like that come back with a pretty negative experience of travel. Often it's too cramped, there's no time to do what they really feel like doing, they feel pressured into buying things in souvenir shops. They end up eating pretty bland and tasteless Chinese food, which obviously have plenty of, a much better quality in China. And one of the misnomers is that Chinese want to eat Chinese food when they travel abroad. Actually, that's not true. So that's a big misconception. Operators give them that because it's much cheaper than, say, Western food. And because they share it all, in kind of sharing bowls, then there's less wastage. So, and they can fill them up with rice, so they actually don't feel hungry. What happens with Western food often is that they just don't, it's not tasty, but obviously the problem is that they get a portion, on their dish, and when they finish it, there's no more. And they just feel still hungry. So Chinese food is more flexible and convenient, but actually some restaurants that have experimented started putting out steaks and potatoes, but doing it in shared bowls. And surprise, they loved it, because the food is great, it's just that, and it's different, and they enjoy that. And the same thing you can do with pasta and, Italian food. So often what people that traveled for a number of times to different destinations want to do is start exploring. They feel more confident to actually travel on their own, either with friends in smaller groups or as a couple or as a family. There's not enough response for that from the destination, so the marketing is still done only through travel agents trying to get to those kind of big groups. The visa situation is such that really the bilateral tourism agreement that's called ADS, is really there to facilitate group travel, large group travel with a qualified travel leader and with an approved operator locally that handles all the ground arrangements. So it's quite restricted, and we're leaving behind a lot of the more fragmented and kind of changing demographic of, for example, the gray market, right? And basically pensioners traveling, in China, once, since they have one child, once he's, left and has his own, kind of world, they're pretty much free to do what they want. And in most cases, both parents have worked all their lives, so they have good disposable income. So these guys will probably have a slower pace of traveling. They actually often are having enough time to kind of get educated, and they've done some of those big groups, so they want to spend more time in one destination, get to know the culture, get a bit more in-depth experience. You have the luxury segment, again, really booming, people that have made lots of money quickly, and they want to travel and spend it like Western rich people. They want to be treated not like Chinese, but just like everybody else who has money. And then you have, again, adventure travel. There's a lot of different kind of subsectors that need to be, start being explored. So I think one of the areas that interest me is technology and online distribution, e-commerce in the context of China. I've worked in China for 3 years, from 2002 to 2005, developing distribution platforms and distribution systems for travel agents to book travel. And I also launched a consumer site towards the end of that time. So what I really saw was the difference in how people book travel online in China compared to the West, and also the restrictions that are basically placed on e-commerce and online advertising by the Chinese government, especially on foreign firms. So for many aspects, it's still much harder to be able to really make an purely online business profitable in China. And if you look at who is really a major player in the online travel space in China, companies like Ctrip or Elong. Their business model is about online information, but actually offline, telephone-based or travel agent-based collection of money and issuing of vouchers and tickets. So it's a hybrid model. And a lot of foreign companies that go into China and think that they can just do things online because there's a huge market, a huge online consumer market, miss the point that there's still many, many restrictions. So things cannot work the same way. You can't just copy a format. And I think that's applicable to all online companies, not just travel. But obviously my background is more in travel, so that's why I'm kind of thinking about. So I think that in the future I would like to get more involved in finding hybrid models and creative models of making online work successfully, which means that you have the benefit of reduced distribution, fast route to market, great marketing opportunities, but still take into account that Chinese consumers buy differently, that they actually prefer cash, they want to have something physical in receipt of their money, and they need a brand they can trust. They're just not going to give their money freely online. So that's where I probably will be going in the next few years. But right now I'm focusing on distribution issues in travel technology here in the U.S. And I'm also in Europe working with Chinese companies that are basically hoping to find direct routes to consumers in China, to consumers in Europe for different services in the travel side. So both in terms of offering travel services in China for inbound into China, but also in terms of like finding clients that will buy marketing services in the Chinese area. So my partner has a great, for example, newsletter, online newsletter and email newsletter that goes to thousands of travel agents, and what they're lacking is the understanding of how to do PR and marketing in Europe. So before I was doing it the reverse. Now Chinese companies are starting to say, actually we need the Western market, and we're not happy anymore just speaking to a company that comes to us in China and pays us something for our service. We want to actually go directly to the consumer or directly to the marketing communications agencies and start building some brand on our own. And I think that's a major trend that we're going to see in the next few years.